Hi guys, welcome back to CJ's Keto Kitchen. If you are looking for home-style recipes made ketogenic that the entire family will enjoy, then you've come to the right channel. Let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we are going to be making zucchini cupcakes. We are coming into the autumn season and a lot of people have harvested their gardens and they have a lot of zucchini and other types of squash. And I wanted to try and make a recipe that would utilize some of that. This was not originally a ketogenic recipe, but I have made it keto. Let's go ahead and get started. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. That helps other people searching for this type of content to find our channel more easily. Thank you in advance. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is to preheat your oven, and you want 350 degrees. You are also going to need some kind of cupcake setup. You could use a traditional muffin tin if that is what you have. I do recommend though using silicone liners. They are my favorite because you end up getting more of your actual cupcake than if you were to use a paper liner. I'm not even using a muffin tin. I am simply placing mine on parchment on my baking tray. But you could of course put these inside your cupcake or muffin tin if that is what you wanted to do. If you only had paper liners, then I would recommend using those. But you're definitely going to want to use something that releases your cupcake. So we are going to want to begin by compiling our dry ingredients for our cupcakes. And the first ingredient that we want is almond flour, and we want 1.5 cups. I have a 1/2 cup measure here, so I'm going to be putting 3 of these into my bowl. Next, we want 2 teaspoons of baking powder. That's 2 teaspoons. And it's very helpful if you ensure that your baking powder is as fresh as possible. It really does make a difference. Next, I am going to be putting in some spice. Now, zucchini cupcakes on their own and zucchini in general is a very mild vegetable. And so I want to give this a spice cake flavor. So that is why I'm going to be using a spice blend. Now, my pumpkin pie spice blend has cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, ginger, and cloves. And I really appreciate the warm spices this is going to provide my cupcakes. Use whatever autumn spices you like in whatever amount that you enjoy. I'm simply going to take a fork and sift around the dry ingredients. This just makes sure that we get some of the larger lumps out of our almond flour and that our leavening is combined well and also does not have big lumps. Okay, I'm going to set aside our dry ingredients for the moment while we begin on our wet. So the first thing to go into our wet ingredients is going to be our sweetener. And in this case, I'm going to be using a brown sugar alternative. I'm going to be using Sucrin Gold. Swerve also makes a brown sugar alternative, so whatever you can find, have access to, or that you enjoy, that is what you should use. And I'm going to be putting about 3/4 cup into my bowl. So the next ingredient that I'm going to be putting in is 1/3 cup of avocado oil. I'm using oil here in this step instead of butter because of the texture that it provides our zucchini cupcakes. I'm going to be putting in a couple squirts of vanilla extract. If you wanted to use a different flavor extract here, you could of course. Butter pecan, Any kind of maple would also be delicious, whatever you would like. Because I am using oil in this step and not salted butter, which is what I usually use in a lot of my baking dishes, I'm going to be putting in just a little bit of salt. This helps with the flavor of our zucchini because, as I mentioned before, zucchini is a very bland ingredient, which works well for baking if you're trying to use other flavors. So I'm going to be putting in about a half a teaspoon of salt. Our last two wet ingredients will be eggs. So you need 2 large eggs. I'm just going to give this a quick blitz with my hand mixer. You wouldn't have to get out your hand mixer if you didn't want to. You could do this with a wooden spoon or something else, but I do appreciate the amount of texture that I get blending my eggs, my sugar, and my oil with a hand mixer. I'm now going to begin adding my dry ingredients into my wet ingredients, and I'm going to do it half at a time, mixing just very briefly in between each half. So now here comes the star of the show, and that of course is zucchini, which I have grated, and I've also squeezed it dry. It's very important that you start with a dry product because you don't want your cupcakes to be soupy. And this is 1.5 cups of fresh zucchini. And I'm just going to combine that by hand. And there it is, just combined. So I'm just going to use a regular kitchen spoon to begin filling our cupcake liners, and you only want them to be about 2/3 of the way. I did overfill one of mine in my prototype batch and it ballooned over, and so I'm looking to avoid that. So they are going to rise a bit, so definitely 2/3 is about right. I'm trying not to make a mess, but I guess I did a little bit. Okay, so we are going to put this into our 350-degree oven. And my cupcakes took about 20 minutes last time, but I would say start with 18 minutes and then move up to however long it takes for them to cook in your oven. You want these to bake low and slow to retain their moisture. So start with 18 and then continue upwards until they're just set in the middle with a toothpick. Okay, there they are. We are going to make our icing, our frosting for our zucchini cupcakes. It's very simple. So here I have 2 zucchini cupcakes, and these have been sitting out for a couple of hours, and that is definitely something of note. Anytime you're making a baked good, it's very tempting to want to dive into it because it looks good and it smells yummy, and maybe when you put your hand on it, it feels cool. But a lot of times it's not cool internally, and if you put your frosting on, it'll just kind of slide off. So I know it's hard to wait, but frosting a thoroughly cool cupcake is definitely going to be your best flavor. So I have 2 here. So I have 4 ounces of very soft cream cheese that I have let sit out for several hours. And I'm just going to add 2 very simple ingredients. To add just a small amount of liquid sweetener. I do not want this to be very sweet. I want the natural sweetness of our cupcakes to shine through. This is more about the creaminess of the cream cheese. You could use a confectioner's natural sweetener if you wanted something that was a little bit more stiff, but I want my frosting to be very whipped and creamy. Then I'm also going to add just a little bit of vanilla extract to give it a really nice, rich vanilla taste. If you like a lot of frosting on your cupcake, you could of course double this recipe. I'm going to remove my cupcake from the silicone liner. And you can see how easily that happens with silicone, which I love. You get so much more of your cupcake or muffin that way. And then I'm just going to simply ice him a little bit. And there it is. There is our yummy, homemade keto zucchini cupcakes, fresh from the garden. Okay, here they are. Garden fresh keto zucchini cupcakes with cream cheese frosting. Hi.
Hi.
Time for some zucchini cupcakes.
Yep, I see. They're really moist. They're good. I like the frosting. Yeah, really good. Think people will like them.